Uniting Two Worlds, Volume 6, chapters entitled Preaching to America, Part 1. Shishikodanitaya Maya Purushashiki Jai. Srila Prabhupada's Chicago visit included several important functions at the temple. Tamal Krishna Goswami and Vishnu Jan Swami had come to Chicago to see Srila Prabhupada and to recommend for initiation 75 new men who had joined their Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. And at the end of the week, Prabhupada would be attending a Ratha Yatra procession in downtown Chicago. Each morning he lectured in a large hall at the Evanston Temple before several hundred devotees, speaking about the life of Ajamil. Each day he would tell more of the history of the sinner Ajamil, who was saved at the time of death by calling out the name of God, Narayan. On the fourth morning, Prabhupada was explaining how Ajamil had named one of his sons Narayan. So the idea is that, by God's grace, in the beginning of his life, Ajamil engaged himself to be Krishna conscious and was initiated. Then years later, Krishna gave him the advice, all right, you keep this youngest son's name Narayan, because you'll be naturally attached to this boy, and you will call him Narayan, Narayan, please come here, Narayan, take your food, Narayan, take your drink. So you will chant Narayan. Srila Prabhupada suddenly became stunned, unable to speak. Such a thing had happened before, but rarely. He remained in trance while a pregnant silence held the room. The devotees could see that Prabhupada was experiencing a powerful spiritual emotion. Many of them felt that when he called out Narayan, he had come face to face with Narayan. He was seeing Krishna, who was showing how very pleased he was with his pure devotee. Surely Krishna was very pleased with Prabhupada, and although Prabhupada was fully engaged with the details of his movement within the material world, Krishna was with him, giving him assurance from the spiritual world. For the devotees, this moment confirmed the existence of the spiritual world and confirmed that Prabhupada belonged to that world and was only visiting the material world to give Krishna consciousness. Most of the devotees were neophytes, still attached to the material and having little vision of the spiritual, but now they could see the spiritual world through Srila Prabhupada's ecstatic trance. After about a minute, Srila Prabhupada returned to external consciousness. All right, he said. And then, with the same words he used to end all his lectures, he said, "Thank you very much." Then devotees began a rousing melodic kirtan. It had been a special moment, and they kept it in their hearts. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, text number 23. Na Brahmanais Tulaye Bhutam Anyat. Na Brahmanais Tulaye Bhutam Anyat. Pashyami Vipra Kim Ata Param Tu. Pashyami Viprakim Ata Param Tu. Yasmin Nribihi Pravutam Shradayaham Yasmin excuse me. Yasmin ribihi prahutam shradayaham. Ashnami kamam na tatagni hotre. Ashnami kamam na tatagni hotre. Na brahmana stulaye bhutamanyat. Pashyami viprakimata paramtu. Yasmin ribi prahutam shradayaham. Ashnami kamam na tatagni hotre. Na brahmana stulaye bhutamanyat. Pashyami viprakimata paramtu. Yasmin ribi prahutam shradayaham. Ashnami kamam na tatagni hotre. Na brahmana stulaye bhutamanyat. Pashyami viprakimata paramtu. Yasmin ribi prahutam shradayaham. Ashnami kamam na tatagni hotre. Na brahmana stulaye bhutamanyat. Pashyami viprakimata paramtu. Yasmin rivi prahutam shradayaham. Ashnami kamam na tatagni hotre. Na brahmana stulaye bhutamanyat. Pashyami viprakimata paramtu. Yasmin ribi prahutam shradayaham. Ashnami kamam na tatagni hotre. Na brahmana stulaye bhutamanyat. Pashyami viprakimata paramtu. Yasmin ribi prahutam shradayaham. Ashnami kamam na tatagni hotre. But for what? Na? Not. Brahmanai. With the brahmanas. Tulaye. I count as equal. Bhutam. Entity. Anyat. Other. Pashyami. I can see. Vipra. All assembled brahmanas. Kim. Anything. Ataha. To the brahmanas. Param. Superior. To. Certainly. Yasmin. Through whom? Nirbi. By people. Prahutam. Food offered after ritualistic ceremonies are properly performed. Shradaya. With faith and love. Aham. I. Ashnami. Eat. Kamam. With full satisfaction. Na. Not. Tata. In that way. Agni Hotre. In the fire sacrifice. Krishna Prabhupada, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. All respectful Brahmanas, As far as I am concerned, no one is equal or superior to Brahmanas in this world. I do not find I do not find anyone comparable to them. When people know my motive after performing rituals according to Vedic principles, they offer food to me with faith and love through the mouth of a Brahmana. When food is thus offered unto me, I eat it with full satisfaction. Indeed, I derive more pleasure from food offered in that way than from the food offered in the sacrificial fire. Purport. According to Vedic system, after the sacrificial ceremony, the Brahmanas are invited to eat the remnants of the offered food. When the Brahmanas eat the food, it is to be considered directly eaten by the Supreme Lord. Thus, no one can be compared to qualified Brahmanas. The perfection of evolution is to be situated on the Brahminical platform. Any civilization not based on Brahminical culture or guided by Brahmanas is certainly a condemned civilization. Presently, human civilization is based on sense gratification, and consequently, more and more people are becoming addicted to different types of things. No one respects Brahminical culture. Demoniac civilization is attached to Ugra karma, horrible activities, and big industries are created to satisfy unfathomable lusty desires. Consequently, the people are greatly harassed by governmental taxation. The people are irreligious and do not perform the sacrifices recommended in Bhagavad Gita. Yagyad bhavati parjanya. By the performance of sacrifice, clouds form and rain falls. Due to sufficient rainfall, there is sufficient production of food. Guided by the Brahmanas, society should follow the principles of Bhagavad Gita. Then people will become very happy. Anad bhavanti bhutani. When animals and man are sufficiently fed with grains, they become stronger, their hearts become tranquil, and their brains peaceful. They can then advance in spiritual life, life's ultimate destination. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. By the mercy of spiritual master, a blind man can see the stars, lame man can cross the mountains, and dumb man can speak eloquently. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto lotus feet of my spiritual master. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Shtabhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nirishesha Shunyavadi Pashati Deshitani. Translation again. All respectful Brahmanas, as far as I am concerned, no one is equal or superior to the Brahmanas in this world. I do not find anyone comparable to them. When people know my motive, after performing rituals according to the Vedic principles, they offer food to me with faith and love through the mouth of a Brahmana. When food is thus offered unto me, I eat it with full satisfaction. Indeed, I derive more pleasure from food offered in that way than from the food offered in the sacrificial fire. So, we are studying here the importance of Brahminical culture. This Rishabhadev himself, the Lord himself, is explaining how Brahmanas is actually dear to him. And the reason why Brahmanas is so dear, because Brahmanas help or remind us or establish the culture by which the whole purpose of this creation can be achieved, which means reformation of living entities, selfish, contaminated desires, purification, and going back to Godhead. When Brahmanas are leading the society, that becomes the ultimate and most important values. We can see throughout the history when there are different types of groups of people that come in charge, monarchs, business people, or what would be called Shudra or craftsmen people become in charge. Then it becomes a different value. They bring their values according to their nature, modes of nature that they are influenced. Becomes the most important thing. Like for the monarch, is like a power. The kings, they want to go somewhere, conquer the world. You had like Alexander the Great. He tried to expand, far and further his kingdom. And we have many different types of empires that try and kings that we are reading those empires. You can see their value was the power, control. And then you have like a more modern civilization when business people become in charge, and then the value becomes money. Becomes the ultimate value. You judge about your success in the society, how much money you have. Doesn't matter what is your character, doesn't matter what is your private life. As long as you have money, then that becomes a standard, that becomes the value. Whatever rich people do, then that is kind of sets a standard for the rest of the society. At least, to some extent or to some people, but technically speaking, they kind of influence the values. And, when you see an advertisement, when you see the things are shown on TV and that kind of thing, those values are prevalent. If you have no money or whatever money brings, like possessions, looks, etc. That's basically values for the society, and if that is kind of lacking, that is considered like almost unacceptable or immoral, etc. And then when so that's kind of democracy brings this idea is actually fulfilling the goals of and aspirations and values of business class of people. And then communism comes, when the people get fed up with this, exploitation by the business class, when they get like really disturbed. And then communism comes, then everything belongs to the state, and etc. And then that becomes kind of value. Um, just working hard, but there is no clear direction where the things are going. And there is, like there is a tendency of not to have any proprietorship. So in one sense, that also discourages quite a few people because you don't own things, in communism. And the drive to push forward becomes reduced as well. So Brahminical culture, it brings this greatest value, the transcendental knowledge and wisdom becomes available for the society easily. And also Brahmanas give the best type of advice as well. And you cannot bribe them because they generally choose the life of poverty. They don't have much possessions. So you cannot influence a Brahmana to get something done. I guess, except of giving him some nice prasadam. As we can see, that's very pleasing to the Lord. But even that becomes a service. So if you want to bribe a Brahmana or something, offering him nice prasadam, but actually you're doing the greatest service at the same time when you're getting purified. Because as we read here, Krishna is very pleased. He practically more pleased than that food is offered to the Brahmanas than in a sacrificial fire. When the sacrificial fire as well, various types of foods gets offered as a part of the offering. And of course, we are also offering to the deities prasadam. But technically speaking, Krishna becomes more satisfied not at the time when the prasadam is offered to the Lord, which is obviously is a very crucial and significant part in deity worship and worshipping of the Lord, but actually when that prasadam gets distributed to devotees, and devotees obviously is known as better than Brahmana, in a higher position than Brahmana, because even if a devotee is new, he is actually achieving the ultimate purpose of the human existence. It's like reviving, is on the path of reviving Krishna consciousness. So Brahminical culture is so significant because when Brahmanas lead the society, or the head lead the society, and then the proper values gets established, the values that according to the scripture, the values that are given by God, and so things like, as we read in the purport, in a non-Brahminical culture, or culture that is focused on sense gratification, all those values that are there is actually acting as a destruction of civilization. As we can see, this civilization that we develop now, and we are suffering from pandemic, of course, as well. But this civilization has created such a situation that is self-destructive. Is creating such an environment when we just focus on sense gratification, enjoy your senses to the max at the expense of others, and become addicted to that sense gratification, then everything becomes dull in terms of intelligence, over gratification of the senses. Then when people are very attached and even mad after sense gratification, then they cannot discriminate what is good and what is bad. Then bodily values and demands becomes the most important thing to fulfill. And then whoever is in charge, if they offer satisfaction of those bodily demands, then they get voted in. So the whole society becomes unbeneficial for developing human qualities. The basic human qualities become compromised. And so many problems become manifest in terms of basically all the problems of the world is, technically speaking, is manifestation of polluted hearts and polluted minds. Everything starts from inside that contamination, as we discussed in the beginning, that the brahmanas become contaminated and polluted, then monarchs reject them, and then the monarchs become very powerful, and also their motivations become polluted, and then they exploit their situation, and then business people, they kick out the monarchs and they establish their societies, and then when the business people exploit the labor class too much, and then they protest, and then in that way the whole system collapses bit by bit. And now you have a situation when people are just completely confused, what to do. It looks like a hopeless situation. Do we need another system? Do we need another political ideas? Do we need another way of running things? What to do? Is this situation of having somebody in charge in itself is wrong? Because like we have in a democracy, absolute power pollutes, or what is that saying? Contaminates absolutely. What is the saying?
Absolute power corrupts.
Corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, because starting from the monarchs, you see, they hold the whole power, and if they abuse the situation, the whole thing is upside down. And it looks like as well nowadays we have like a person gets elected for 4 years, and then often there is a re-election, because if they realize that if they stay for too long in the power, that becomes of a problem. People start abusing it. So let's do another election in 4 years' time, another president, another government, etc. And so the person doesn't stay for too long, in the power, because then they become too comfortable or too powerful, or start to know too many people and try to exploit their situation. So keep things on moving. So people then people think maybe this is completely wrong as well. It doesn't seem to be working, because it looks like we elect the leaders to represent us. So it gives you that illusion, the people that we elected, they are actually representing my interest. But actually, it's not exactly the case, as we can see again and again and again. Vote for me, I will fulfill your needs. But actually, what happens, it's not exactly the case. So like people are becoming like very despondent and depressed, what to do now, where to go now. But actually, what is the essence is the problem is not so much the political system, which to some extent it is, but is the pollution of the heart, the contamination of the consciousness, when there is selfish motivation. So unless that pollution is removed, then you can elect, a million times. You can kick out, this government and elect another, party, or get this another president or the leader or prime minister. Unless there is enlightened leadership, unless there is a change of heart and purification, then it's just not gonna work. If you elect another person and put another person who is selfishly motivated, but there is a socialist system, that there is this or that system that seem to be representing, this class of people. If the pollution of the heart is there, contamination of the heart is gonna be some sort of problem, because it's coming from selfishness. It's not about caring the people or protecting the people. And even if there is some care, like there are some successful socialistic type of governments that care for the people, and they seem to be their certain physical needs are addressed, but they're remaining in this material world for another birth. And who knows in what system they're going to be born in the next life. So the goal of life of going back to Godhead, and making this a last birth is not achieved, even if you have this very good social structure system. When you see in some countries, it's kind of not too bad. Doesn't seem to be too much kind of exploitation, and people are taking care to some extent. So that's again, a part of Vedic system, that government does take of the needs of the people. So they seem to be more successful governments in the world are those who are doing that to some extent. People's then certain needs are fulfilled, but they're not fulfilling their ultimate need. Is not just getting fed, is not sufficient just to fulfill that need, being like a well-fed or well-educated, etc. But there's many countries who are in that situation, but people are still depressed. There is like, I know one country, I won't mention its name, but people are like, kind of prosperous and etc. and everything is fine, and it's socially well structured, but people are, they have a highest suicide rate in Europe, or second highest. So you can see, despite of all that, material prosperity, physically fine, education is fine, but still people are still internally dissatisfied and frustrated to the extent, they are suicidal. They are not happy. So that's the problem. But the Brahminical culture establishes the method of purification, establishes what the leader has to be like. They as well set an example of what does it mean to be peaceful, what does it mean to be God conscious, and what leader supposed to do. The leader should supposed to take care of people and facilitate the situation in such a way that people are practicing spiritual life, make a very, that establish that value, that the most important thing in a society for all of us is actually our spiritual cultivation, because that's what ultimately and definitely gonna bring the happiness and satisfaction and liberation from this material world. And even more than liberation is engagement in a pure devotional service, which is accessible even in this world. That it becomes a spiritual world where devotional service is performed without any motivation. So this is how important it is to establish Brahminical culture, because then everything uh, gets into place. The kshatriyas, the administrators, are performing their job properly. They take advice and they take care of people. They create environments that are there meant for spiritual development. And then business people, they produce the production. They take care of the cows. They take care of animals. The animals are not exploited. The animals are taken care of. The cows are taken care of, and the charity is given for brahmanas, for those who decided not to take any wealth on, and the brahmanas and kshatriyas, then they distribute that wealth and make sure that everybody's needs are taken care of, and the work is done. People who are in the labor class, they are taken care very nicely. Their needs are fulfilled. They are also giving spiritual values. So then everything falls into place, and then that is considered successful civilization, where the transcendental qualities that Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita are cultivated, where people achieving the potential of being a human being. So Prabhupada very well understood this principle, and his very important goal for the society is to establish Brahminical culture, caring for the cows and having this educated class of people. Because just like the whole society become degraded from fall down of Brahminical culture, that is started from Shringi, who cursed pure Rajarshi Kshatriya king Maharaj Parikshit for a small little thing. This is considered where Kali Yuga has kicked in with its force, when the Brahmanas abuse their position just to, I'm in charge here, and I'm gonna curse this pure devotee of the Lord for a small tiny offense. And then in a few generations it becomes like a caste thing, that because I am born in a Brahmin family, then I am in charge, I'm the head of the society, and people should do as they tell. And it doesn't matter what is my character, doesn't matter what is my behavior, doesn't matter if I'm purified if I'm actually developing Brahminical qualities. And this is all this caste system is becomes degraded. But the idea was that a person is considered a Brahmana by its qualities. So we know that Vaishnava, even if he just have a surrender to the Lord, and it doesn't have other qualities, that is considered still Vaishnava, a devotee of the Lord, and should be respected. At the same time, Prabhupada wanted to reestablish Brahminical culture, and Brahmana is recognized by the qualities. So often, we neglect that part, you think, and it's the same problem, in fact, that happened to the Brahmanas, it can happen to us because it's just a tendency of Kali Yuga that just because I am Brahmana, then I should be respected and I don't have to purify my existence. So we have to watch ourselves for that mentality. Just because I am Vaishnava, of course, we offer respect to everybody else just because they're surrendering to Krishna and chanting the holy name, and we judge others just on that. That person is a Vaishnava. But for our own selves, we shouldn't judge ourselves. I'm just chanting Hare Krishna, and therefore I am Vaishnava and Brahmana. Ourselves, we don't judge by that. Ourselves, we judge by development of the qualities. And in the beginning, of course, we need a lot of encouragement. We may be very far from it, and of course, we have to be realistic. At the same time, we need to understand that this is very significant for establishing Brahminical culture. That Prabhupada wanted to happen because that helps to, expand and develop the mission of Krishna consciousness. Because, when the society is in a mess and people don't know what to do, just like we read in Chicago, there was this problem about the crime, and leaders don't know what to do with the crime. And so then there is this educated class of people, and there's a lot of confusion now in the world, and people thinking this and that and the third thing. And when we have a very clear understanding of what needs to be done, there has to be a part of all the social and welfare and mental health work, etc. We need to establish the very powerful programs for purification of one's existence. Just like Prabhupada said, give us a space. We create kirtan programs, and we create lots of prasadam. So that kind of thing has to be established, a mass purification of existence, and it can be, and the mental health problems is very difficult. That can become a very powerful vehicle for giving people that opportunity and giving people those tools of chanting of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, purifying their existence, doing food distribution programs. These are very, very favorable environment now to bring that purification. But people will take us seriously if we have this very deep understanding of what it is, how, what is the ultimate goal of life, and just like a practical, good advice in terms of leadership, in terms of like a business, like, for example, Radhanath Swami, whenever he meets business people, he says, earn with integrity and spend with compassion. And, there's a lot of people speaking about social responsibility. If you do have money, it's your social responsibility to do something, uplift the society. And just the physical and mental upliftment won't be enough. It has to be some spiritual upliftment, cleansing of the heart, bringing the character, bringing the devotional values. But we have to be that. Then the people will take us seriously. Otherwise, if we don't exemplify those qualities, white people will take us seriously. It will be difficult for anybody to take an advice. Advisor usually is a knowledgeable person who knows their stuff. And if a devotee he has a very deep understanding. And this is the missing link, there's various advisors and they give some advice, but because it doesn't include the spiritual dimension, it doesn't work. So what to do for us, how for us to reach this Brahminical culture, how to purify our own existence. We've been given everything, but how powerful is the fire of purification? Can we increase the power of purification? We've been given this process that can take us to absolute, complete purity of the heart, manifesting in a pure devotion and pure love of God. And we can see people who had pure love of God had this amazing influence in terms of transforming people's hearts, uh, and helping them achieve the ultimate goal, and also for people who are not ready, establish some sort of system, like varnashram, may not be fully possible in the modern age, but it is, Prabhupada wanted it to some extent. That means it is possible, but it requires that purity, because otherwise, if there is exploitation from top to bottom, then it's not going to work. People are going to protest, people are going to revolt sooner or later. So there has to be that purity there, and then people will follow that. So how we can increase that fire? And I read this nice analogy yesterday. When you do something for many, many times, it becomes so deeply ingrained in you that it's difficult to change something. Let's say you did something, million times or billion times or many billions times. It's just very, very difficult. You're just so caught up in that cocoon of your behavior that you did in this life and many, many lifetimes. So in the same way, we have to do something to change that. So that's why we chant this, one of the reasons anyway, we chant this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra again and again and again and again. 25,000 names every day. We vow to chant it the 16 rounds. And then, hundreds and thousands and millions of names to purify our existence, to purify our anarthas, to cleanse our heart. We have to embrace very strongly those spiritual principles and do it again and again and again and again. And, when that fire is on, in that analogy goes further, that when you turn the fire on, the water, a pot of water, in the beginning it doesn't seem to bring it to the boil. For a long time it doesn't seem to be anything happening. A lot of energy is coming in, a lot of fire is coming in, and if the fire is low, it takes a long time until the fire, it comes to the boil. And if the fire is high, then it comes to boil much faster. So can we increase the fire? Take responsibility. Let's increase the fire, and we won't be able to, bring the fire of purification to the boil if, for example, we are falling asleep in our japa. We doing is not only disservice to our own selves, but we are, or Srimad Bhagavatam class, we are making disservice, doing disservice for entire human society by doing that. And so we need to take responsibility, and to do something about it. Is the whole civilization depends, on your japa. How is your japa? Is not only your own life, is the future of entire human society depends on how you're chanting your japa, how seriously you're taking your study. Are you awake in the Srimad Bhagavatam class? This can help so many people in a small way or in a big way. We should be feeling that pressure a little bit on our shoulders when we are attending a morning program, and try to do something about it. So, are there any questions or comments at this point? Yes, please.
We see throughout history, not just in Kali Yuga, but also in previous yugas, that atheistic empires actually conquered Brahminical cultures.
Mm.
And sometimes you may say that that was Krishna's pastime, but it seems that that pastime is repeated over and over again. And also that's the case in Kali Yuga,
Mm.
that often regimes which may have, like you mentioned, like certain countries may have a higher standard of social responsibility, but because they don't have military power, then they're conquered, either financially or you know, military conquership. They're conquered, and then it creates a lot of suffering in that society. And apparently, it's not just the sinful people who suffer; it's often the Brahmins who suffer also. You see that in India, that even in the time of like the Renaissance, back to yoga in the time of Lord Chaitanya, and more recently as well, that temples and whole societies were uprooted by invasion.
Mm.
So, how does a Brahminical society protect itself from financial and military attack?
Mhm. Thank you very much for a good question. Yeah, as you mentioned in the history, there was times when very kind of atheistic and demoniac kind of forces conquered, Brahminical culture and even Vaishnava culture. And we just read this one explanation, why this Krishna. Sometimes you wonder, why Krishna allows to happen. At one point in India, uh, the Vrindavan was invaded, this was destroyed, and etc. We wonder, how is that, how Krishna allows this to happen. So this devotee was explaining that, uh, this breaks Vaishnava's hearts, and but at the same time, it it puts them into this vipralamba bhav, in remembering Krishna in this very, sad and heart rendering and heart destroying situation. At the same time, it achieves, in one sense, Krishna's purpose of always remembering him and never forgetting him. And when it is, very, very heartbreaking and upsetting to Vaishnavas, at the same time, it increases that remembrance of Krishna, whoever then pure Vaishnavas are there at that time in the history. Uh, but at the same time, you can see that the way how things become reestablished and reawakened, like Vaishnavism was lost for a couple hundred of years, or whatever it was amount, after Baladev Vibhushana up until Bhaktivinoda Thakur. What makes it reawaken is the same thing that will protect it. So purity is the force. This Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a pure devotee of the Lord. He established the whole purity. Technically speaking, he's unfolded, and started the ball rolling. Of course, Jagannath, and there was like Vaishnavas before him, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, etc. But he kind of reawakened that purity because he himself was pure devotee, and he established and shared this purity. Basically, it's transformation and distribution. Being that purity is the force, Prabhupada said, was very common in vocabulary of devotees. This purity is the force and still is. And that's the foundational principle for protection. And I mean, military also will be there, but when the purity is there, then just like this Russell Brand, he came to Bhaktivedanta Manor. He's like a very influential person. He came to Bhaktivedanta Manor and he saw this sannyasi, And as soon as you saw the sannyasi, they're looking very happy and jolly, and exemplifying fully Vaishnava qualities, he said, "I want that, whatever it is, I want it." Uh, and then when the influential people want it, then they can give necessary protection as well when it comes to physical attack or military attack and etc. But still, the foundational principle is the purity is the force. You're speaking about the force. It doesn't say the military force. It says the purity is the force. Is a superior force than a military force, because with that purity, people will follow that. At least some people will follow that, and that will have an influence on others, or in necessary protection. The kshatriyas, the leaders, the administrators will give a necessary protection to the people who do that. And even in the modern days, government and Scottish government actually supported us a lot during this pandemic. So they're giving protection. They see some value of what we're doing in terms of food distribution, in terms of well-being. Like those military people came in the last year for the 70, the Raksha Bandhan. I was thinking, how in the world we're gonna relate to them? But as soon as I spoke about meditation, they had a full appreciation for it. PTSD, they suffer from this. They suffer from and the society in general suffers from so many problems. So the well-being is fully appreciated and valued. Peace of mind and etc. All the qualities, basic qualities that devotees develop, is this people starting to see value in it. The leaders of society start to see value of it, because if the people are not peaceful, of course there is some benefit in divine and conquer, and that gets used again and again. But if people just get completely too disturbed, then nothing gets done. If the 25%, 1 in 4 people or 1 in 3 people in UK, there is a problem of mental health, then the society just can't function. Job doesn't get done, the things doesn't get done, people are not sick or benefits and etc. Then it's just not, society becomes dysfunctional. So bringing that peace and distribution of food and some values and etc. There is so much that devotees can offer, to the society, and then that protection will be there. And whoever distributes food, they're gonna get a protection. This is the first thing, in a time of crisis. This is the first people that get protection who distribute food. And the people who give well-being. The next step after this pandemic is over, what is the next step will be bringing some well-being, mental well-being, and bringing the economical, sustainability, because a lot of people will identify we have to end this pandemic by establishing some self-sufficiency and etc. This is going to be a driving force, so we can be fully involved in that, and whoever is doing that, they're going to get a protection by whatever military leadership and etc. Because they will be appreciated. They're doing a valuable, very valuable work. So I don't know whether that answers the question.
Yeah, that's answered. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's stop here. Sheila, you had something?
There's a question online.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Would you like to read it out?
Yes.
What to do if people see changes in us, but they don't understand and see it as helping? What to do if people see changes in us, but they don't understand and don't see it as helping? Perhaps we're going through some purification, but they don't find it, difficult to accept. In this case, are we doing it all wrong?
If I understood it correctly, this question, we may be supposed to set an example, but an inspiration for people. At the same time, we ourselves are going through some purification, and we are not setting example. Is that the question for me? Anyway, if the person is listening, then they can confirm it if I understood the question correctly. And just let me know, so I'll try to answer. But from what I understood, uh, so basically, we are still ourselves maybe going through the cleansing, and people may see that, and they don't take us seriously, or they think they're not following. Is that the question? That we ourselves are still getting purified. So honesty one is very, very powerful thing actually, and it's very, very effective. If you just pretend to be very like some sort of elevated and say I'm like a very pure, but people see is not exactly the case. So we also can be very honest. We have this very powerful process, but at the same time I'm working on this, like being honest. I don't have this. This is our value, and we have this very, very elevated value. So if you're devotee, by being honest, I am far away from it, but I'm working on this. There's a big difference. That's what is considered hypocrisy. The hypocrisy is that if you are projecting that you are something but you are not, that is the hypocrisy. But if you are honestly admitting, I mean, this is the standard and this is where I am, and you are honestly say, I am actually working toward this, this is my goal, but I'm maybe failing again and again, or I'm far away from this, that is not hypocrisy. If you are honestly striving for something and you are failing, people will forgive you that, and in fact they will even appreciate it for that honesty, because you say, this is our value, but I'm far away from it, or I'm still learning, I'm struggling with this, I'm having a difficulty with this. So that honesty is very, very refreshing, and people will appreciate it, and in fact it will inspire them to do the same, to work on themselves. Uh, so that's important thing. And also we need to look as well, why we're struggling ourselves, whether we're taking all the necessary tools that are available for us. Often it's available for us, and we given, like a Brahminical culture means, giving advice and taking advice as well. So the advice is available for us to overcome our problem, and we are not taking it. That's also, we need to look, are we actually taking a good advice? So need to look at that as well. Am I taking advantage? Because when you start taking the advice and the guidance, especially from the people who are, energized, inspired, empowered, or pure, and etc., and we are struggling, then we have to accept that some advice from a person who is not struggling or is struggling less. And this is actually definition of madness by Einstein. Of course, I don't necessarily want to quote Einstein, but he says that madness is to do this the thing again and again, the same thing, and is not working, but expect a different result. It's considered a madness or craziness. Of course, I'm not implying that the person who gave a question is like that, but I'm just unpacking the question. Is the responsibility of being honest with other people, but also is our own responsibility. Are we actually dealing with the problem properly? So we may be doing the same thing again and again and again that is not working, and still keep doing it despite of advice available, support available, and etc. And we still try doing the same thing. That is considered by Einstein, who is a very intelligent person, a crazy or mad. And Mahatma Prabhu as well defines or describes the human condition like this, also as a madness or crazy, that you're doing something that is not working, it's causing you a lot of misery, it's causing you a lot of suffering, but you still keep doing it because it's very comfortable for you, because this is something what you know, you've been doing it for 20 years, it's not working, but you are very comfortable with it. And you, rather than adjusting something and changing something and getting a good advice and getting a good guidance and making a transformation and actually becoming happy, energized, inspired, and etc. But because it's something unknown to us at the present moment, we rather remain in that comfortable condition of not doing anything about it. So we also need to look in that, am I actually taking the guidance in advance? And just like what we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita a couple of days ago, what is the devotee who went with Lord Chaitanya? He was with Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he got distracted by this gypsy women, so he didn't take advantage of that association. He was inside of himself. It wasn't cultivating and taking advantage for a transformation of the heart, but he was still remaining like a biased and internally motivated. So yeah, these two things, I hope I've not offended the person. I'm just speaking in general, that on one thing, being honest and aspiring, and that is the difference, in that was educated in that specific pastime, Lord Chaitanya. You may be biased, you may be motivated, you may be contaminated, but you are determined to strive for an ideal, for a highest ideal. And that is what people will appreciate and love it and like it. However, if you are, not striving for that result and for the change, and just keeping things as they are, and people will see that in hypocrisy, and then we may get criticized and etc. That we are speaking about this high thing, but deep inside of us, we are not aspiring for it. And inside of us, we are not determined enough. We're just keeping things as they are with all those biased things. So that is not good, that is not good. But if you keep highest aspiration, even if you fail millions of times and we are honest about it, people will appreciate it. And because they also, fail many times. So sorry, I went so much over time. Thank you so much for this very nice question online. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.